The national parks are full of mysteries. Missing people, strange, unidentified sightings, and other strange things are just the tip of the iceberg of what really goes on in these places. Something is out there in the woods. But before we start today's video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like strange and supernatural stories. Gail Stewart, who was 64 years old and last seen on February 14, 2020, went missing for no clear reason. She just went for a walk near her home in Reno, Nevada, and was later reported missing when her family and friends called the police because she didn't come back home. Then there was a search. Officials, friends, and family looked all over the Coughlin Ranch, Alum Creek, and the Truckee River, hoping to find some sign that Gail Stewart had ever been there. Not at all. One of the people in one of the search groups happened to look over a nearby cliff and see Stewart hanging from a tree. She was saved, but by the time they got to her, she was already unresponsive and showing signs of hypothermia. She, too, was gone. Family and search and rescue workers didn't know what she had been up to. It must have been a crazy one because she only had one shoe and they didn't know what happened to the other one. The police, her friends and family, and the people helping with the search are all confused as to how she got into this situation in the first place, especially since she had deep cuts on her knees, legs, and feet. Luckily, she was taken to a hospital, where her wounds were treated and she was given the all clear. Happy to be alive and ready to go home to see her friends and family, she doesn't know if it was a coincidence or if it was meant to happen. But the same 64-year-old woman, Gail Stewart, went missing again. A month from now, on March 4, 2022, she will leave her home in Reno, Nevada, and travel more than 400 miles to the Hoover Dam to take pictures. She just wanted to take some pictures of nature and the area around her because the Hoover Dam recreation area is so beautiful and breathtaking. In fact, it's so interesting that a lot of people come to see it. Every year, almost 7.5 million people visit the same park, and a park this size sits on more than 150 million acres. It would make it almost impossible to look for things. Strange about Stewart's case is that she only found out she was missing after the police and park rangers told her. They started looking for her in the area and found her car still in the parking lot, along with her cell phone and purse, which seemed strange at first. Could she have gotten lost and gone to the park, where something bad might have happened to her? Did she trip and fall? Did she experience a time glitch? Was he with her? How is it that this woman just disappeared without a trace? Recently, Stewart's son Matthew wrote on his Facebook page, "Mom, wherever you are, I hope you're not in pain, and I hope you found peace." He was clearly upset and traumatized by the disappearance of his own mother. A family who is sad and doesn't know what happened to their loved ones because they don't know what happened or why. All over the country, this same kind of thing happens all the time when people go missing near national parks. And it's not getting any better, folks. People just vanish without a trace and don't leave anything behind. Could Gail Stewart have been just another one of them? Or was she kidnapped or something even worse happened to her? In the American Ethnology Report of 1898, there is a story about a boy who was 10 years old and saw something very strange, possibly a fae or fairy. The story is about a 10-year-old boy who went missing and was later found, even though his disappearance was very strange. He had not been hurt or hurt anyone when he went missing, which was a good thing. After practicing archery for a while, a young boy named Wofford thought, "Hey, I could go fishing around here and bring a couple of good fish home for my mom to cook for dinner." He was excited. He runs down to the river and starts setting up stones to try to catch some fish. Out of nowhere, a mysterious, kind, gentle stranger comes out of the woods and starts talking to the boy, saying, "You look tired, you look hungry, Are you okay? Do you need any help? Even though Wofford was scared when this stranger showed up out of nowhere, everything about him, his manner, his character, and his body language, was calm and persuading and very gentle. This is when he invited the boy to come back to his house to eat a lot of food, have fun, and be 10 years old. You're a lot more naive. So the boy just agreed that it was a good idea. Even though this person appeared out of nowhere, which was strange, the boy wasn't too scared because this stranger seemed calm and gentle. So, the boy and the strange man decided to go for a short walk in the woods, where they found this beautiful house. Wofford would talk about the house and how it looked in the future. It was beautiful, well taken care of, and well lit. It was neither creepy nor scary. In fact, it was so welcoming and comforting that as soon as Wofford walked into the house, all of his tension, nervousness, and fear disappeared. And as soon as he walked into the house, he could smell sweet treats cooking. People were laughing, giggling, and singing. It was great to be there. So, Wofford sat down and ate his food, which was both filling and tasty. Mind you, had a delicious dessert, and he started laughing and playing with everyone else. During this time, he was enjoying social hour, and he saw one of his neighbors there with him. This made it clear to him that he was right. Okay, well, if he's here, I know I'm safe and I can really let down my guard. Now, after playing and having fun for a while, he got tired and went to sleep for the night. When he woke up the next morning, he told the strange man who had brought him to the house in the first place. I got to get home. I know that my family is very worried about me. They might be freaking out. So, the man smiled at him and led him out of the house along a small dirt path. To the left was a cornfield, and to the right was an apple orchard. Again, I want to stress how beautiful and peaceful the house and property were. It was like a small fantasy world in the middle of the woods. So, this man is talking to the boy and leading him to the end of the path. At the end of the path, he points in a certain direction and says, if you go over this hill, which was a ridge and a river, you'll get back to your house. So, when the boy turned around to say goodbye to the stranger for the last time, he was gone. And here's where things get even stranger. Not only did this mysterious kind stranger disappear, but the landscape around him also changed. This stunning and beautiful apple orchard and this cornfield were no longer there. All around him was a deep, thick forest. In fact, the path that had been used wasn't there anymore. Now, the boys are kind of freaking out because they don't know what just happened. What do I do? And he was lucky enough to find his way back to where he had heard people calling his name. It turned out that it was his friends and family, who had been looking for him since the night before, when they found him. They were happy to hug and kiss their son and ask him what had happened and where he had been. And he explained in a very calm way. This strange person and I had met in the woods. I went to this house with him. Food and dessert were both very good. Oh, and was that my neighbor? And the neighbor who was supposedly at the house was also one of the family members looking for him. As Wofford was talking, this neighbor was looking at this kid. Yes, I did see you last night at the dinner party. You were having a good time and laughing. The neighbor gives him a strange look and says, no, I've been looking for you all night and all morning. Where did you go? The tale on Wofford is just weird. But many people who believe in magic or the supernatural like to think that this is a perfect example of fae or fairy people. But that is, of course, just a guess. Some people think that this was just a case of an inche, he or some other kind of shapeshifter, but they are usually associated with darkness and danger. And evil. So, for what reason should it be kind? And if that was really the case, why did it happen? Or he could have taken him back to his house, fed him, comforted him, and then just let him go, which didn't make much sense. So, if you want to look at it from a paranormal point of view, it could very well be the Fae. If you want to look at it in a realistic way, he could very well be making it up. But if he was making it up, how would we know where he was all night and day, and why he would try to lie that his neighbor was somewhere he wasn't? The boys seemed to be telling the truth and were sure that this had happened. If we were to look at this with a critical eye, how could we say that this makes sense, even though the story is very interesting? It's hard to say for sure what this might have been. The next story comes from an anonymous submitter who said they saw a man, they don't know if it was a ghost, an apparition, or a real person, run out of the woods onto the road holding their bloodied shoulder and chest and then disappear. In the email, the man said that his name was Jonathan and that he and his wife were going to Yosemite National Park one night. Now, he didn't say exactly where in the park they were, but he did say that it was evening and that the sun was getting low in the sky. It wasn't completely dark yet, but it was hard to see. And from what the emails sound like, Jonathan and his wife were trying to find the camping spot they had already reserved and were going to stay at for at least 4 or 5 days. And as they drive through the area, they come to a part where there are only trees on both sides of the road. This is common in national parks and camping areas, and as the road curves, they see a man in what look like black pants and a blue button-up shirt run out into the road in front of the car, holding his left shoulder and covered in blood. The man looked like he was completely freaked out and scared. But everything happened so quickly that when the man ran out in front of Jonathan's car, Jonathan had to slam on the brakes and drive right through him, or so he said. He then stopped the car and put it in park because he thought he had run over Jonathan. He gets out of the car and uses his phone as a flashlight, but he can't see anything. In fact, there wasn't a single person there who was scared, confused, and baffled by this. He runs back to his car and asks his wife if she saw what he just saw. And she is just as scared as Jonathan says she is. "Yeah, I did. Did we hit him just like that?" But it looked like there was no sign of the strange man who ran out in front of the car. Jonathan was very upset by this sighting, and he went on to explain that neither he nor his family nor his wife have ever hallucinated or used drugs that changed their minds or smoked weed or drank alcohol. In fact, this was such a clear sighting. He can remember everything about the man's face. He had short, curly, black hair, a clean-shaven face, a bigger than average nose, and he looked pale and sweaty. He was sure that the man was running away from something or someone, and he remembered how hard the man was gripping his chest. He thought the man had been shot or attacked and was looking for help. But as soon as this man ran out in front of Jonathan's car, he turned to see Jonathan's headlights go right through him, and he was gone. So Jonathan wonders if this was a ghost or maybe a dead person who kept coming back to life, maybe to relive its past. Or was this just a random hallucination that both he and his wife saw? Whatever the case, it is disturbing to say the least. Crater Lake National Park, while stunning, beautiful, and peaceful, has its own dark mysteries and past. Like many other national parks, it is the site of many missing persons and strange disappearances, as well as a lot of murders. In the summer of 1979, a man named David Pennebaker decided to work here as a seasonal park ranger. However, Dave's interest was piqued when other rangers and park staff told him about a craft that had been there right after World War II. A Grumman F-6F Hellcat fighter plane crashed in this part of the park, but it couldn't be picked up and moved out, so it's just sitting there in the middle of nowhere for anyone to see if they knew where to look. Even though nature had taken back most of the area where the plane had crashed, you could still make out part of the White Star insignia from the plants around it, and a piece of its machine gun was now stuck in the side of a cliff. No one was sure what happened to the pilot. Most people thought he had either died in the crash or escaped by parachuting, and nobody knows what happened to him. So, because Dave Panabaker wanted to see this plane, he thought it would be cool to take a day off and go see where this plane crashed. So, yes, that's what he did. As he hiked and went deeper into the woods, he lost track of where he was looking for the plane wreckage. He looked and looked and looked, but he couldn't find anything. After a while, he realized that he was lost and that if he didn't stop and figure out where he was, he would soon become another person who went missing in the park. So, the young seasonal park ranger sat down on a log and started to think about what he was doing, where he could go, and how he could get himself out of the situation he was in. He still hadn't found the wreckage of the plane, and he needed to leave. Now, while he was deep in thought, he realized that something that used to be alive was looking at him. Right in front of him, under a log, were the remains of a World War II Hellcat pilot who had died. At this point, of course, nothing was left but the bones. But you can imagine right away the dread, nervousness, and fear Dave must have felt when he saw this old body that had been dead for years. At this point, David was probably so scared and curious that he took the skull and somehow found his way back. When he talked to his chief ranger, who was not happy with him, because he had lost his way and almost became another missing person, he simply showed his chief ranger the skull. The chief ranger was so shocked by David's story that he had an entire naval investigation team come out to look for him. The skull used to belong to a New Jersey man named Fran Lupo. People say that in 1945, Lupo was part of a group of 7 Hellcats that flew from Redmond, Washington, to Red Bluff, California. All 7 of them had trouble seeing that day because the clouds were much lower than usual. This made it hard to see as the squadron flew through a fog of clouds that got as low as 500 feet above the treetops. All but one of the Hellcats had made it out of the cave safely. They were missing a member, and Sen Frank Lupo probably crashed or did something else because they couldn't see anything. The rest is history. And this story has a happy ending because the Navy was able to give Frank's mother his skull. After 25 years of heartache, heartbreak, and lots of questions, she could finally put her son to rest. If you like the stories I posted today, be sure to click the like button and leave a comment telling me what you think. And as always, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and keep your notifications turned on. This helps my channel a lot, and you'll get mysterious and supernatural stories every day. Who wouldn't want that, right? I love you guys as always. Don't close your minds, and I'll see you all in the next video.